Okay, so I know you guys are grade 9s, sorry, from Australia. I know you guys are grade 9s, and you guys haven't done your TED Talks yet. So I'm here to warn you about how hard it might be in finding a topic, because it is really hard. You know, the topic can be absolutely anything, and while it seemed great, like it would be a dream come true for anyone, a boundless utopia where you can fully unleash your creativity, I really struggled to find a topic. For some reason, I spent countless hours every single day trying to find something that was unique, something that was special, something that was worthy of being talked about. But I got nothing. What felt like an incredible idea at first was completely scrapped by the next day. And so this made me think, why is it that the more boundless freedom I had, the more paralyzed I ended up becoming? And unfortunately, that is actually how I ended up getting my topic, by being stuck. Hi, I'm Sreesangkom, and I'm here to tell you how constraints can actually lead you to creative freedom. I want you all to imagine this. You were given a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and you were tasked with a job to write absolutely anything. No word limit, no set theme, no nothing. What would you do? Well, unfortunately, if you're human, like most of us would actually end up being stuck on ideas, unable to write anything, and fall into a writer's block. According to Barry Schwartz, an American psychologist and professor at Swarthmore College, when us humans are given countless of opportunities and choices to make, we end up feeling stress and anxiety. The more we have to ponder about our choices, the harder it becomes to decide. This phenomenon is what he calls the paradox of choice. More options, more thinking, and as a result, more regret. But constraints help set a general guideline for us to follow, and help eliminate the many daunting choices that otherwise you would have to make, allowing for us to much more effectively narrow down our creative energy into more specific parts. And now some of you might sit there thinking, well, it was pretty easy to find the topic, it wasn't that hard, blah, 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 blah. Well, think this to yourself. Ask yourself this question. Was that idea something truly creative and unique that you really had to reach into the depths of your mind for? Because personally, something that is truly creative isn't the first couple of things that pop up in your head. It's not the most obvious thing. And don't take my word for it. Take this man. Creativity is seeing what other people see and thinking what no one else has ever thought. According to a study conducted by the Journal of Consumer Research in 2005, participants were tasked with the job to design a toy using 20 different shapes. A group of participants had imposed constraints. They were limited on what options they had. The other, absolute freedom. They could do anything. The results might actually surprise you, because those who had all the tools at their disposal actually ended up scoring lower in their creative processes than those who weren't. So you might be asking, why is this? Well, you see, when there are no constraints on the creative process, complacency sets in. People tend to follow what psychologists call the path of least resistance. They would end up going for the most intuitive idea that comes to mind, rather than thinking further into the development of better ideas. They are too stuck inside their comfort zone and are pushed out to think less conventionally and more creatively. This is Phil Hansen. He's an artist, and in his journey into becoming an artist, he utilized this concept very much. He firstly, like most of us when we have passions, he strived to be an artist, and he spent many years studying it. However, a damaged nerve in his hand made his hand shaky, making it all uncontrollable. This became a physical wall that prevented him from being able to draw like the many great artists he admired. And he was at the brink of quitting. However, it was not until his neurologist had told him, maybe just embrace the shake, embrace that limitation, and so he did. Instead of struggling to work with dots, which he couldn't do with his uncontrollable shaky hand, he set his hands free and scribbled up an image instead. He also used this concept in other works of art as well, like the concept that art isn't for display to be in museums, but rather a process, which led him to all these creative works, like tattooing a banana. Yeah, it's pretty weird. But the thing is, he doesn't let his art be deterred by his limitations and constraints that he's imposed. But he makes those very limitations be the defining characteristic of his art. Bringing a sense of uniqueness, a sense of unconventional beauty that no other artist could have thought of. And you might sit there thinking, well, surely it only works in the field of art, right? Well, wrong. Because according to Brandon Rodriguez, an education specialist for NASA, he reveals that this very concept also works in the field of space and aerospace engineering, space exploration, the future of humanity. Consider the landers Vikings 1 and 2, which relied on thrusters to arrive safely on Mars. Those very thrusters would burn fuel that would contaminate the soil samples. The problem? Well, they had to design a rover which wouldn't have to contaminate the soil when it landed. And so with this problem in mind, they worked around it and designed a solution. An airbag system that would allow the rover to bounce and roll to a halt without burning any fuel. And next, a couple of years later, they wanted to send an even larger rover, too big for airbags. They used this same process, identify the problem and work with it to design this, a sky crane that would lower the rover from high above the ground without contaminating the soil at all. The important takeaway is, with each invention, the engineers demonstrated an essential habit of scientific thinking. That first, we must recognize the limitations of our scientific understanding before we can achieve solutions. So, what if we embrace these constraints instead of fearing them? What if we saw these limitations as a tool to unlocking our creative nature rather than as obstacles to our imaginative potential? So how can we use this concept? Well, 3 easy steps. Very easy, 3 easy steps. Number 1, be inspired. It's probably the easiest form of constraint, because you may not know this, but actually inspiration is a form of self-imposed constraint. Because when you are inspired by something, you are putting yourself under the same boundaries and constraints as the work you are inspired by. And like I just taught you, constraints help eliminate the paradox of choice and help make you much more efficient in your creativity. Number 2, set a time limit and make it a little uncomfortably short for you. Because according to a study conducted in 2004 by the Journal of Consumer Research, participants were actually much more creative in their problem-solving skills when faced with a very strict time limit. And the time difference, you ask? Well, 3 hours and 2 minutes. And hold on, I'm not trying to make you set a 2-minute time limit on your math homework or anything, but just think about it. Maybe if you don't feel as free, you might be more efficient than you think. And lastly, a problem well stated is a problem already half solved. So before you even start your sketch, before you even start your brainstorm, before you even do anything, ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? And make a list of requirements on what you will do to achieve them. These are your constraints, and these will help guide your work forward. So, creativity. It is a powerful tool and gift that we all have up in here. We all have it. And I have just taught you, I've just shown you, that you can actually manipulate this to be more creative than what you have ever imagined. So why not use it? Because learning to be creative with the confines of our limitations is not only our best hope to transform ourselves, but collectively change our world. So as you sit there with a pen and paper struggling to write something, with this knowledge in mind, what would you do now?